He is the public address announcer for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We welcome Shawn Parker onto Hoopsology. How's it going, Shawn?
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on to the show. And with a lot of our guests, we want to explore their connection with the game of basketball. So we usually ask, what is either your favorite basketball memory or your first basketball memory that comes to mind?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Probably my first basketball memory, and I'm going to date myself here, would be 1982 NBA Finals, Sixers Lakers. That was probably my first exposure to the NBA. And I started out, I'm from the DC area, but I did start out a Lakers fan, because of that series. And yeah, Dr. J and Kareem, Magic, that's my wheelhouse right there.
Awesome. And Shawn, I want to kind of get your path and route to becoming, to say, public address announcer overall, because I think it's something within the basketball world that's not really explored. I think it's fascinating. I think Matt and I were talking, we were saying that it's one of the most unsung, positions that you go to, an NBA game. It's so critical because, if you don't have the right public address announcer, you're going to notice that gap throughout the entire game. So can you kind of explain just your journey into not only becoming the Minnesota Timberwolves public address announcer, but how you became involved in this profession overall?
Sure. And one thing, just to piggyback on what you said, it's also a position that is misunderstood because when you tell someone that you are a public address announcer, they're like, "Oh, the guy on TV is like, no, that's the play-by-play guy." No, and I use this term simply to get people to understand. I tell them I'm the voice of God in the arena, and they're like, "Oh, okay." So just wanted to kind of clear that up. So
Sure.
people that are watching this podcast,
Sure.
play-by-play, PA, voice of God. So there you go.
Thank you for the clarification.
No, absolutely. But in terms of my path, so I started out. I was a journalism major. Actually, going back to high school, I went to a visual performing arts high school. Studied broadcast television production. Went to the University of Maryland, studied broadcast journalism, wanted to be a sportscaster, wanted to be the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock anchor, in DC. Decided when I was in college that I didn't want to go down that path. There were, certain things about the profession I just didn't like at the time. Did other things. And probably about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to get back into doing something sports related. So reached out, and this is for all aspiring PA announcers. This is definitely a way to get your foot in the door. I volunteered at a local high school near where I worked. I just reached out to them, sent them an email, said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to be a PA announcer." And they were like, "Okay, yeah, let's bring you in. We'll talk to the basketball coaches and see if they want to do this." And the basketball coaches were on board. And so I volunteered. And you volunteer, you don't get paid. I got paid in candy bars and hot dogs and sodas at the concession stand, but that's okay because I was getting experience. So from there, I started making connections. One of the big connections that I made, and I always tell him that he is one of the big reasons I am where I am. The former PA announcer for the Washington Wizards, Ralph Wesley. I connected with him. He threw me a couple of jobs that he was doing, couldn't do it. That got my foot in the door. With the DC Divas, the women's professional football team in DC. I was PA announcer there for 4 years. And I also made it over to George Washington University, Division I school in DC. Did 6 sports there. And it was there, as I was gaining experience, I said, let me look for auditions, for pro auditions around the country, just to see where my skills matched up. I just wanted to see where I was so that I could grow in my position. There were 3 positions that were open in the NBA at the same time.
Wow.
The Timberwolves, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets. See, that shows you how old I am. Coming back to New Jersey now.
It's still weird to me too.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Me too. Yeah, great.
So those three positions were open. New Jersey, I found out about it the day of, so I was like, I can't do that one. So I emailed the other two. Memphis didn't get back to me. That's fine. They've got a great PA announcer down there, Marcus Tucker. He's awesome. And then the Timberwolves emailed me back and said, yeah, we've got audition slots, you know. So I decided to fly up. Never been to Minnesota. I was like, okay, let me fly up there, and you know, I've never been there, and let's give this a shot. So I flew up, and long story short, I can make the story longer, but the long story short, 3 rounds and 400 people later, they chose me.
Wow.
And it was a real blessing. It was, definitely a learning experience. Like I said, it was 3 rounds, and I actually flew up here twice, once for the first round, once for the final round. But like I said, it was a true blessing, and I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. If I can pry, what was that like? Was that like kind of a game you were watching and having to sort of make announcements on the microphone there? Or
so the actual audition.
Kind of
okay,
like?
so
Yeah.
the first round of auditions, it was actually at we play at Target Center, but the first round was actually at the Excel Energy Center because Target Center was under renovation. So we were at the X. So they brought us down to the tunnel, and the court was set up for the Lynx. The Lynx they were playing there that season. So they had a table set up behind one of the baskets. That's where we did our audition. They had the judges at the scorer's table. And later they told us they wanted that physical distance so that people wouldn't come up and glad and, hey, hi, it's nice to meet you, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not that they were being mean, but they had so many people to go through. They couldn't do all that. So they had the distance. So they had a table set up with the microphone. They had a sample script that had the starting lineup, a couple of general reads, and the welcome. So they told us, read the script, read it through. When you get finished, they will either say thank you very much, or if there's something that they want you to reread, they'll ask you to reread it. So I went, sat down, I read it, very professional, and he was like, thank you very much. That was very professional. We want you to do the starting lineup again, but this time, this is a new era of Timberwolves basketball, new uniforms, new logo, new branding, renovated Target Center. We're looking for a fresh, big sound. Like that guy in Detroit. Now, I'm sitting there very straight, very professional. And when they said that guy in Detroit, I literally did like this. I was like, oh, you mean Mason? And they're like, yeah, exactly, Mason in Detroit. And they're like, no matter how weird it sounds, we just want to hear your maximum volume, everything you have inside. We want to hear it. Okay, no problem. So I sat there for a few seconds. I dropped my head. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. And out of the pit of my soul came this voice. Now, I have a loud voice. I have a big voice. My voice carries anyway. But it was another gear. It was something deep inside that came out and it was just, it filled the entire arena. So I got finished. Thank you very much. I'm sure somebody will be in touch with you. I walked up the stairs to get to the concourse. When my feet hit the concourse for the first time in my adult life, I had a panic attack after the fact. And it wasn't from being nervous or anything, because I've been behind the mic before. It wasn't a matter of being nervous. It was the realization that I went to Minnesota and I did exactly what I said I wanted to do. I wanted to do my very best. And I really felt at that point, I felt like I gave them my absolute best. And it was about a week later, they called and said they wanted to move me ahead in the process. And It was the first week in September of 2017. I flew back up here for the final round, had an interview, did another recording for them, and they, about 2.5 weeks later, they called and offered me the position and told me after the fact that that first night that I was there, that everybody else that came behind me, they would have had to beat me, that it was my job to lose. And I was like, wow, I'm glad you didn't tell me that, because I would have been on pins and needles, for the next month while that process played out. But it was very cathartic doing that. I would recommend to everybody, go somewhere and just at the top of your lungs, with everything in your soul, just belt something out, because it really is something that, releasing that. And I'm very fortunate, very blessed to be able to do that now 41 nights a year.
Awesome. You've had so much experience over the years calling different sports. Going back to those early days, was there a difference in the way that you would do different sports, like at the high school level, at the college level? What have you found to be the difference between sports in what makes for a good PA announcer?
Professional basketball is different than other sports,
Hmm.
especially more so the high school level. College, you get a little closer to the pro level, but on the high school level, it really is about about being professional, being slanting a little bit, being a little bit of a homer, but not being over the top. You want to be respectful to all of the athletes, and you're not going over the top. Being an NBA PA announcer is about going over the top, having that big sound, and just you're an entertainer. If you go to the Timberwolves website, I along with the in-arena hosts, we are listed under Game Night Sounds, and we are part of the live programming and entertainment department. So we are entertainers. I'm giving them information, but in a way that is entertaining. And I've had people come up to me. It's funny. I had an interaction probably about 2.5 years ago with one of the Timberwolves super fans. And it was before a game, and I was walking through the tunnel, and I was chatting with him and a couple of other people, and he said, when you first started, we didn't like you because my predecessor, he had been with the Timberwolves for 21 years. So,
Oh, wow.
I'm only the third PA announcer in Timberwolves history.
Wow.
There was somebody that had the job for like 8 seasons. He had it for 21, and now it's me. And they were like, we didn't like you at first because his style was a little more he was, demonstrative, but a little more understated. I'm a little more over the top than he was. And they were like, we didn't like you at first, but we've gotten used to you. You're cool now. And I just laughed, and I'm like, hey, thank you. And I knew that there would be, a transition there. But the fans have been awesome. They really, they like my call. And at the beginning, Minneapolis, it's time to hear you howl, and they really get behind that. And I've been fortunate. Now I have a couple of signatures, and it's really cool. It's a really cool experience, and I enjoy it.
Shawn, can you go over what are your favorite memories in terms of just being in that arena and just feeling the energy off of that crowd? I don't know if anybody can relate to that except yourself or other PA announcers, what that feels like in terms of just the emotions, especially with a big game that's happening. Do you have any notable memories regarding that scenario?
Absolutely. My first season, the Timberwolves went to the playoffs the first time in 14 years. So there was a little joke that, hey, Shawn comes in his first season, he gets to go to the playoffs. But yeah, as a matter of fact, the Timberwolves, we clinched on the last day of the regular season. We had to beat Denver in game number 82 at home to clinch. And we came back from like 15 down in the fourth quarter to force overtime. And when I tell you that the atmosphere inside Target Center was just electric, I mean, I had goosebumps. The fans were on their feet for most of the game, and it was just back and forth. You could feel the tension, and then when we finally did win, again, the goosebumps, the roar inside Target Center was unlike anything I've ever heard. The word "clenched" in big capital letters is flashing all over the scoreboard, all over the ribbon boards. I mean, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And then we had our little group. We had an after party after that. Place we went to had clinch flashing everywhere, and it was a phenomenal feeling, because even though it was my first season, I felt the release that everybody had. I felt that, oh my God, we did it. We're in the playoffs, and it was a feeling that kind of instantly drew me in, because I told you I'm from the DC area. I grew up a Washington Wizards fan, and let's just say we weren't in the playoffs every year. So I understand that. I get that feeling. So it was just that feeling. It was indescribable, and yet I'm describing it at the same time, because it was just something that was just everybody. It was hearts and rainbows, and everybody's high-fiving and hugging, and it was just a phenomenal feeling.
And how do you address like the opposite of that, when there's expectations of that big win and they don't? And as a PA announcer, what's the thought process there in terms of, I mean, you have to be professional, but at the same time, is there any kind of thoughts of like consoling the crowd in a way of how? Because I always wonder in a situation in which the team's not going to the playoffs, or they're eliminated from the playoffs. How is that addressed in terms of what's going through your mind during that process?
Well, let me just say that, and I've had people ask me, several times, are you, and I tell them I'm from the DC area, and they're like, are you a fan of the team? You can't sit there for 41 home games and call, these players' names and get to know them and whatnot without becoming a fan of the team, without caring. So I am a Timberwolves fan. So it hurts. When we lose a game, it hurts. We sit at the score, like you see us, kind of in passing at the scorer's table, but we're sitting there and we chat amongst each other. And when we hit a big shot, we're there cheering. It might be a small fist bump, but we're pumping our fist. And when somebody misses a shot, we get depressed. We have the same emotions that the fans do. We just can't be as outward with it. So when we lose a game, I mean, I'll give you an example. We had a game, and this, it hurts to talk about this, but we had a game where we were up by 17 points with 3 minutes left in the game.
Oh.
And we ended up losing that game in overtime. And we're just sitting there, and we had, some of us, most of us, we just had a bad feeling about it. And it's just, you go through those emotions. But again, like you said, you have to be professional. So I can't get on the mic and like, tonight's final score, blah, blah, blah. You can't do that. But there are ways that I do that. Like at the end of the game, when we win, at the final buzzer, I'll get on the mic, tonight's final score, your Minnesota Timberwolves, and do it like that. When we lose, tonight's final score, the Minnesota Timberwolves, blah, blah, blah. So there are ways you can change the inflection of your voice to show your emotion. And so that's what I do. That's what I try to do with that.
Makes sense. This might be a silly question, so I apologize in advance if it is, but are there times where you have startled or surprised people around you, like at the start of the game? I mean, obviously you've got the microphone in front of you, but you're so high energy. You've got such great vocal projection. Have you noticed people getting like startled or just surprised at the beginning of games when you're starting things out?
No, you know what? I don't notice it because literally when so a little bit of an insight. And by the way, people that are watching this, I do a Facebook Live of myself doing the starting lineups. You
Oh,
probably
cool.
probably saw that, so you can
Mhm.
kind of imagine and see what I'm about to describe. But after I do the visiting starting lineup, the lights go out, the music starts, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just I'm in a zone. So I'm not looking around. I am focused on my cue. So as the music is going, the first few seconds, I'm getting into it, I'm bouncing and whatnot, and then I'm looking up at the scoreboard because I'm looking for my cue to come in. So if you've ever been in Target Center or have ever seen one of our games, we have our intro video, and as soon as our logo hits, that's when Minneapolis, it's time. And so I'm looking for my cue. So I don't see what's going on. I don't see what the players' reactions are or anything to it because I'm just focused on doing my job. I don't want to mispronounce anybody's name. I don't want to announce the wrong player. So I'm just so locked in. I have heard after the fact that people that haven't been to a Timberwolves game in a while and they hear me, they're just like, wow, they're like, it really, kind of blow people away. I remember the first scrimmage that I did, which was a scrimmage for season ticket holders. My boss said, "Okay, this first game, I want you to hold back a little bit. I don't want you to, we want to save that for opening night. We just want to give them a little taste of what you can do." I said, "Okay, no problem," and did that. And then opening night, it was just, hey, let's go. And people, it took a few games for them to get used to me because I was just so, my voice was so in your ear.
Mhm.
People say in your face. It was so in your ear. It's there that it took them a minute to get used to that. But now, now they love it and they know that hey, the intros are going to be lit. And that's what I want to give them.
Awesome. Do you have any like regular preparation before the game and maybe any like specific like vocal exercises and stuff you're doing like that to kind of like warm up and prepare for the game?
You know what? I don't. I'm very blessed with a strong voice. I probably should, because as I get older, I imagine that the voice will change, and you have to do those exercises. But for the most part, I just try on game day. I try not to do, soft drinks. I try to drink lots of water and tea.
Yeah.
Especially Minnesota winters. Like the first winter, it took me a while to get acclimated to the weather up here. So, I had to, February was a struggle. I've missed one game
Mm.
in my career, and it was February of my first season. I had a cold, and it took me a while to get over the cold. Like physically, I was fine, but my voice had to recover. So I did miss one game. But for the most part, it's just about just keeping the throat lubricated so that I can do
Mhm.
what I need to do once I get out there.
Shawn, I want to ask you about your experience with NBA 2K. How did that come about? Did they approach you? And then what was the whole process like, actually, hearing your voice in a video game? What was that experience like?
So the initial process when they did reach out to me, and I got an email from 2K, and it was an email saying that they had a project coming up, and they wanted to talk to me about it. I'm like, okay. So I said yes. I'm interested about hearing more. So I actually, before I had a conversation with them, I had to sign an NDA because they had everything on lockdown because they wanted to, do their own big rollout of the game. So they didn't want any word leaking out. So the NDA, the whole nine, and talked about it. And so last December 2020, flew out to LA for a week, went to the studio, recorded, and it was a lot of lines. I mean, 7 days straight, 3 to 4 hours a day, and
Wow.
we're talking thousands of lines because literally every player in the NBA, every legend that you can think of, the custom players in the game, the incoming draftees. I mean, we said all of those names. We said all of those names dunking the ball, and 3-pointers, and assists,
Wow.
and it was a lot, and it stretched my voice. Like, I didn't know that my voice could do what it did for that sustained amount of time. Like, after the first day, I thought I was done, but they coach you through it, and I was able to give them 7 days of just sustained high energy, and it was fun. It was a fun experience, and then to actually hear myself, in the game, I have no words. It's a speechless thing, because it's like I'm in a video game. That's wild. I never would have thought, if you had asked me, told me 5 years ago I would be an NBA PA announcer and I'd be in a video game, I would have told you you were insane. But here I am, and it's just a blessing.
And I saw the video that's been circulating around with every single PA announcer in the league. If you happen to watch that video, what was your thoughts in terms of your colleagues as well? Like, is there kind of like a brotherhood that's kind of formed, and they have their own styles? What does she kind of take away? If you happen to see that video, and just in terms of how they approach the game compared to yours, not like in a competitive way, but just in terms of just, and I guess an analytical way in terms of how you approach all these guys in the NBA. Was there kind of any comparisons or any kind of notes you guys shared with that process?
Well, first of all, you picked the absolute right word. Every now and then, I will message back and forth with PA announcers in the NBA and outside of the NBA, and some of us use the hashtag PA brotherhood. Because
Awesome.
really, it's a select number of people. I mean, if you think about it, there are only 29 other men in the world that do what I do, that are NBA PA announcers. There's a specific subset that are NFL, that are NHL, that are MLS, MLB. So it really is a brotherhood. So when you talk to another PA announcer, you know that they are going through the exact same things that you are. They have the same experiences that you do. How we approach what we do and our delivery, yeah, there are differences. I'm on this end of the scale, along with John Mason in Detroit. That we are just high energy, just up there. And then on the opposite side, you have Lawrence Tanter in Los Angeles with the Lakers. Very low key, and the most you're going to get, ladies and gentlemen, the starting lineup for your world champion Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, that's what you're going to get. The gentleman, I'm sorry, his name escapes me, but in Utah, he's been there for almost 40 years. His style, a little bit more low key. So there's a flavor for everybody, and I might go out to LA and audition for the Lakers, and the Lakers fans might not feel me because they've had that style for 40 years. So my shtick might not work in LA, where it works in Minneapolis. It might work in Orlando or Miami. Michael Biamonte is a friend of mine. Dos minutos, and which I absolutely love. He's awesome. He's one of the first PA announcers to reach out to me when I got the gig up here. But we all have our different styles, but just like the NBA is in different cities, and different cities have different flavors, we have those different flavors too. So there is somebody for everybody. And I'm glad that I'm for somebody.
Well, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to ask, last question, unless you have more, Justin. What are you looking forward to, and how do you feel the energy is for the fans of Minnesota this season? I mean, obviously, Anthony Edwards is electrifying. There's a lot to look forward to there. What's kind of your outlook for this upcoming season and what to expect from the Timberwolves?
Well, the one thing that about this past season and COVID was that we did not have a full Target Center house to see some of the stuff that Anthony Edwards did.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what it's going to be like when 18978 are in Target Center when he goes up for one of those thunderous jams and the one that everybody says that was the dunk of the year
Yeah.
against Toronto. And full disclosure, the guy that he dunked on, Yuta Watanabe, he went to George Washington, and I did a couple of his games when I was at George Washington. So it was kind of bittersweet to see that because when it happened, I was like, oh my, like all of us at the table, I rocked back in my seat. We were all like, oh my God. But then on the flip side of it, I was like, oh, Yuta. Oh my goodness! Like he's gonna be immortalized forever on that. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward. We have some new pieces. We have Patrick Beverly is now a part of the team, and again, I'm not an analyst at all. I'm just telling you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the energy that he brings. I'm the things that I've heard from Cat in the off season. I'm looking forward to his renewed, attitude. It's just all of those elements. It makes it so good when I'm, when I'm announcing and doing that thing. The wins are so fun. It's when they're on a run and the heart beats a little faster and the adrenaline flows a little more because, trust me, we might be in the second oldest building in the NBA, but that place can rock when the Timberwolves are on. And I've had the privilege of hearing that a few times. And so I'm just looking forward to some more times like that. And I think we got some more times like that coming this year.
Shawn, thank you very much for joining us. Can you please let our viewers and listeners know where they can find you on social media? And then if you have any other projects or anything else you want to plug, please let them know as well.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Main Event Voice is the handle, Main Event Voice. On Facebook, you can just Shawn Parker, SHAWN. Parker. You can also find my professional page is Shawn William Parker or at Main Event Voice. I do a Facebook Live of my intros. And so I always post when I'm going to do that. So you can take a look at, a little bit behind the curtain of how an NBA PA announcer does his intros. And I also do voiceovers and freelance play-by-play. So I love doing play-by-play as well. So I do high school play-by-play for the Minnesota Vixen women's professional football team. The WFA, if you haven't seen that, women's professional football, they've got some skilled, quality players. So go check it out, WFAfootball.com, and find the team that's in your area.
Great. Shawn, we really enjoyed the chat. Thank you for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome anytime.